What if everything you've been taught about growing tomatoes is wrong? Not slightly off, completely, expensively, wastefully wrong. I'm going to show you something today that will genuinely make you angry, not at me, at every gardening channel, every box store garden center, and every bag of synthetic fertilizer you've ever bought. Because there's a community of farmers in rural Pennsylvania growing tomatoes so big, so flavorful, so absolutely loaded with fruit that professional chefs drive hours out of their way just to get their hands on them. And these farmers don't spend a single dollar on fertilizer, no chemicals, no sprays, no expensive amendments, nothing from a bag, nothing from a store. And they've been doing it this way for over 100 years, while the rest of America got sold a completely different story. I've spent time with these communities. I've watched them work. I've tested their methods in my own garden. And today, I'm going to hand you 8 of their most powerful secrets, completely free, right here. Some of these are going to feel obvious once you hear them. Others are going to seem bizarre. And one of them, I'm warning you right now, smells so bad it will make your eyes water. But that one might be the single most effective thing you do for your tomatoes all season long. Stay with me until the end, because if you leave before Secret 7, you're leaving the best thing on the table. Before we go further, if you're the kind of person who wants to grow real food, not grocery store cardboard, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a tomato in the comments. I read every single one. Let's get into it. Secret number 1 will change how you plant tomatoes forever. And I mean forever. Because once you understand the science behind it, you will never go back to doing it the old way. Here's the thing most gardeners do. They dig a hole straight down, drop the seedling in, cover it up, and walk away feeling good about themselves. Makes sense, right? Plants grow up. Holes go down. Simple. The Amish do something that looks completely wrong the first time you see it. The first time I watched it happen, I genuinely thought the man was trying to kill his plants. He took a healthy tomato seedling, healthy, established, weeks of growth on it, and he laid it sideways in the ground. Not standing up, horizontal. In a shallow trench maybe 4 to 5 inches deep. And then he covered almost the entire plant with soil, leaving only the top cluster of leaves poking out above the surface. I watched him do it to plant after plant after plant, and I had to stop myself from saying something because it looked like a burial, not a planting. And then he explained what was actually happening, and my entire understanding of tomato planting shifted overnight. Here's the science. Tomatoes are one of the only vegetables that can grow roots from any point along their stem that touches soil. Any point. So when you plant vertically in a deep hole, you get one root ball at the bottom. That's your whole foundation. That's everything your plant has to work with all season. But when you lay that same plant horizontally in a trench, you get roots forming all the way down the buried stem. We're talking 12, sometimes 15 inches of active root development that a vertically planted tomato will never achieve, ever. More roots means more water absorption, more nutrient uptake, a stronger, better anchored plant that can survive heat, drought, and stress that would wipe out a conventionally planted tomato. And here's the detail that nobody talks about. Shallow soil warms up faster than deep soil in early spring. So your trench-planted tomatoes are sitting in warmer earth from day one. That's an earlier start, a faster kickoff into the growing season, and a head start on everything that comes next. One technique, no money spent, completely different results. But the root system is only half the battle, because what you put in the soil at planting time matters just as much as how you plant. And this next secret uses something that most Americans throw in the trash every single morning. Every egg you crack, you're throwing away free fertilizer. I'm serious. The Amish figured this out over generations, and now it's confirmed by the same science that sells you calcium supplements at the garden store for $12 a bag. Here's what they do instead. All winter long, every egg cracked for breakfast, for baking, for anything, the shell goes into a bucket. By spring, they have a full season's worth of calcium sitting right there, completely free. At planting time, they crush those shells and place them at the bottom of the hole before the seedling ever goes in. And the reason matters. Calcium is one of the most critical nutrients for tomato development, and specifically, it prevents one of the most frustrating problems home gardeners face: blossom end rot. You've seen it, that ugly, dark, sunken patch on the bottom of what should have been a perfect tomato. Ruins the fruit, ruins the season, and it's caused entirely by calcium deficiency. The Amish don't buy a fix, they build it in from the start. But here's my personal recommendation, and this part matters. Don't just crush the shells coarsely. Really grind them down. The finer the particles, the faster they break down in the soil and start feeding your plant during that critical early window. I use a rolling pin. Some people use a food processor. Either works. And here's the bonus that most people completely miss when they talk about eggshells. The sharp edges of finely crushed shells are a natural physical barrier against cutworms. These are the pests that work overnight, chewing through the stem of your seedling right at the soil line. You plant in the evening, you wake up excited, and half your tomatoes are just lying there dead. Eggshells around the base of the stem create a surface cutworms don't want to cross. Two major problems solved with something you were throwing away this morning. Now, if the soil is right and the planting is right, you still have one more critical decision to make before a single seed goes in the ground. And this one involves what you plant next to your tomatoes, not in them. Most American gardeners treat their garden beds like parking lots. Every plant gets its own isolated spot, and nothing grows too close to anything else. The Amish think about this completely differently, and the difference shows in their harvest. They never plant tomatoes alone. They always plant them with specific neighbors chosen for a reason. The combination they use most is 3 plants working together, a system experienced gardeners call a guild. Marigolds, basil, and carrots. Marigolds go between the tomato rows. The compounds marigolds release into the soil through their roots actively repel nematodes, which are microscopic worms that attack tomato roots underground without you ever seeing them. Above ground, the marigold scent confuses flying pests trying to locate your tomatoes. And at the same time, the flowers attract the pollinators your tomatoes desperately need to set fruit. One plant doing 3 jobs. Basil grows close to the tomatoes, within a foot or two. I was skeptical about this one, I won't pretend otherwise. But I ran my own side-by-side test for 2 full seasons, and the tomatoes growing next to basil consistently tasted better. Not slightly, noticeably. Research suggests basil releases aromatic compounds that improve the flavor profile of nearby tomatoes. It also deters hornworms, which are among the most destructive pests your tomato plants will ever face. You do not want to learn what a hornworm infestation looks like. Trust me on that. Carrots surprise people the most. Plant carrots near your tomatoes and their roots physically break up compacted soil underground, creating channels that tomato roots can follow deeper into the ground. They're doing excavation work for you that you can't see and can't do yourself. 3 plants, $0, a complete natural protection and support system. But here's the thing. Even with the perfect soil, the perfect planting technique, and the perfect companion plants, there's still one massive threat that destroys more tomatoes in American gardens than almost anything else. And it's not a pest, it's not a disease. It's something most gardeners completely underestimate, and it happens in the middle of every summer, right when you need your plants most. The Amish solved this problem decades ago with something cheap, simple, and almost completely ignored by modern gardeners. Here's what they do. After the seedlings are established, they lay down a thick layer of straw around every single plant. And when I say thick, I want you to picture thicker than you're thinking, 6 to 8 inches deep. Most American gardeners who mulch at all put down maybe 2 inches. The Amish use 3 to 4 times that much, and the difference in plant performance is not subtle. First, moisture. A 6-inch straw layer slows evaporation from the soil surface dramatically. In the middle of an American summer, when soil temperatures spike and water disappears fast, that moisture layer is the difference between a plant that's thriving and a plant that's surviving. I've watched Amish gardeners go 4 or 5 days without watering in July. Not because they're neglecting anything, because the mulch is doing the work for them. Second, weeds. At 6 to 8 inches deep, almost nothing germinates underneath. These gardeners spend their time harvesting and tending, not on their hands and knees pulling grass. Third, and this is the part that took me a while to fully appreciate, straw breaks down slowly over the growing season. As it decomposes, it feeds the microscopic organisms in your soil that create a richer, healthier underground ecosystem for your tomato roots. The mulch is actively improving your soil while it sits there. One warning: keep the straw a few inches away from the main stem. You don't want it pressed against the plant base because that traps moisture and causes rot right where you absolutely cannot afford it. Other than that, pile it on. Cheap, effective, and completely ignored by the majority of American home gardeners. Now we're going to talk about fertilizer, and specifically, I'm going to tell you about the one that costs almost nothing, outperforms most commercial products, and requires you to stop throwing something away that you're probably throwing away right now. I have to warn you, this one is going to feel strange the first time you do it, but stay with me. The Amish fish. Many of these communities fish regularly, and when they do, they don't throw away the heads, the bones, or the scraps. They bury them, about 12 inches below where they're going to plant their tomatoes. They literally plant on top of buried fish material, and as those scraps break down underground, they release a slow, steady stream of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals directly into the root zone all season long. It's a timed release fertilizer that works for months, and if you fish, it costs you absolutely nothing. If you don't fish, fish scraps from a local market cost almost nothing. I know exactly what you're thinking. It's going to smell. It's going to attract every raccoon and fox in the county. At 12 inches deep, the odor is completely sealed in. I have been doing this for years, and I have never had an animal dig it up when it's buried at that depth. The smell concern is real at the surface. At 12 inches, it's a non-issue. A farmer named Jacob, who works with an Amish community in rural Pennsylvania, told me something that I've thought about ever since. He said, "In our community, fishing and farming have always been the same thing. The water feeds the land." That philosophy was once common across farming communities in this country. Commercial agriculture abandoned it. The Amish never did, and their soil shows it. Now we're going to talk about something else that most Americans throw away every single winter. And if you have a fireplace, a fire pit, or a wood stove, you need to hear this. Hardwood ash, oak, maple, hickory is rich in potassium, one of the 3 primary nutrients tomatoes need for strong fruit development. It also contains calcium, and it raises the pH of acidic soil. Most American garden soil leans slightly too acidic for tomatoes, which prefer a range between 6 and 6.8. A light dusting of wood ash around your plants can push your soil pH right into that sweet spot. But I need to give you a strong warning here, and I want you to take this seriously. More is not better, not even close. Too much wood ash makes your soil alkaline, and alkaline soil actually locks out the nutrients your tomatoes need, even if those nutrients are physically present in the ground. I have watched gardeners over-apply wood ash and spend the whole summer wondering why their plants looked sick. A thin dusting is all you need, and only clean hardwood ash. Never ash from treated lumber, plywood, or anything painted or coated. Those ashes can contain compounds you do not want anywhere near food you're going to eat. We've talked about the foundation, the planting, the protection, the feeding. Now we're getting into something that changed my results more dramatically than almost anything else on this list. And this is the one I warned you about at the start, the one that smells awful, the one that looks like something went badly wrong in a bucket. If you've been patient, you're about to be rewarded. Comfrey is a plant, large, leafy, fast-growing, completely unknown to most American gardeners. The Amish grow it specifically for one purpose, to make fertilizer for their tomatoes. And the way they make it is simple and deeply unpleasant in the best possible way. They fill a large bucket with comfrey leaves, packed in as tight as they can get them. They add water, they cover it, and they wait 2 weeks. What comes out after those 2 weeks is a dark, thick, genuinely terrible-smelling liquid that is absolutely loaded with potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus in a form plants can absorb almost immediately. It's a homemade, organic, high-performance tomato fertilizer that you can produce indefinitely for free once you establish a comfrey patch in your yard. Comfrey is a perennial. Plant it once, it comes back every year. You're setting up a permanent free fertilizer source. To use it, dilute 1 part comfrey liquid to 10 parts water. Pour it around the base of your plants every 2 to 3 weeks during flowering and fruiting season. The results are not subtle. Plants fed on comfrey tea produce more flowers. More flowers means more fruit. It's that direct. I know the smell is going to stop some of you. I get it. But here's my honest perspective after years of working with natural growing methods. The most effective natural processes almost never smell good. Compost doesn't smell good. Fish scraps don't smell good. Comfrey tea definitely does not smell good. And every single one of them produces results that no pleasant-smelling synthetic product can match. Plant comfrey once. Make the tea. Hold your nose. Watch what happens to your plants. You'll never go back. Now for the last secret. And this one is the one that surprises people most because it has nothing to do with soil. Nothing to do with planting. Nothing to do with fertilizer at all. It happens while your tomato plants are flowering, and it could increase your tomato count by 30% or more with 15 minutes of your time every other day. Here's something most people don't know about tomato flowers. They're self-pollinating, which means each flower contains both the male and female parts needed to produce fruit. But for pollination to actually happen, the pollen has to move. In nature, bees do this through vibration. When a bee lands on a tomato flower and buzzes, the frequency of that buzzing physically shakes the pollen loose and transfers it within the flower. It's called buzz pollination. Without that vibration, many flowers simply drop off the plant without ever setting fruit. You never see it happen. You just end up with fewer tomatoes and no idea why. The Amish figured out long ago that you don't need a bee to create that vibration. Around midday, when temperatures are warm and pollen is most active, they walk through their tomato rows with a small stick and gently tap each flowering cluster. Light taps, that's it. The vibration does exactly what the bee's buzzing does, and the pollen moves. I tested this myself during a rainy summer when bee activity on my property was low. I hand-pollinated half my tomato plants using this method. I left the other half untouched. Same variety, same soil, same water, same everything. The hand-pollinated plants produced approximately 30% more tomatoes. 30%. From 15 minutes of gentle tapping every other day. That number changed the way I think about what's actually limiting tomato production in most home gardens. It's not the soil. It's not the variety. It's not the water. It's pollination. And it's a problem most gardeners never even know they have. Let me bring this together for you. 8 secrets. Zero synthetic chemicals, zero expensive equipment. First, trench planting for massive root development that a standard planting method can never produce. Second, crushed eggshells for calcium that prevents blossom end rot and physically deters cutworms at the same time. Third, the three-plant guild of marigolds, basil, and carrots creating natural pest protection, flavor improvement, and soil work underground. Fourth, deep straw mulching at 6 to 8 inches to lock in moisture, eliminate weeds, and feed your soil microbiome all season. Fifth, buried fish scrap fertilizer, providing slow-release nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium directly where the roots will grow. Sixth, wood ash applied sparingly for potassium, calcium, and pH correction. Seventh, Comfrey tea as a homemade organic liquid fertilizer that drives explosive flowering and fruit production. Eighth, hand pollination that adds 30% more tomatoes with nothing but 15 minutes and a small stick. Here's my genuine recommendation. Don't try to implement all 8 of these this season. If you do, you'll overwhelm yourself and you won't be able to tell what's working. Start with 3. If I had to choose for you, I'd say start with trench planting. Add the eggshells at planting time and put basil next to every single tomato you put in the ground. Those 3 changes alone will produce a noticeably different harvest this season. I'd bet on it. Next season, add the comfrey tea and the hand pollination. Build this system the way the Amish built it, slowly, deliberately, with real attention to results. That's how you develop knowledge that compounds over time instead of knowledge you forget by next spring. These methods weren't invented by the Amish. They were inherited, refined, passed down through generations of farmers who understood one thing that commercial agriculture walked away from. The best way to grow food is to work with soil, not override it. Somewhere along the way, American gardening became about buying the right product. The Amish never got that memo, and their tomatoes taste like proof. If you learned something today, something you're actually going to use in your garden this season, please hit that like button before you close this video. It's the single best signal that tells me this kind of content is worth making more of, and it helps this channel reach other people who want to grow real food the real way. I read every comment, I respond when I can, and I'll see you in the next one. Now go grow something worth eating.